and your work.
Okay, well, my name is Crystal Lee Brown. I am originally from Philadelphia, PA. I like to break out into the whole Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song when I say that, but I won't do that. Yeah, I went to Temple University in Philadelphia. I studied sports journalism and theater as my minor. Upon graduation, I moved to New York City, and I did way off Broadway. As well as studying sports. My goal was to be a sports reporter. So I worked for the NFL. I worked for the AFL and the NBA during my time in New York. And, me juggling my career as well as theater work, I migrated more to the arts. So I moved to LA in 2005 to pursue my acting career. And I left the sports world behind. So here I am in LA, almost 17 years later.
Wow, amazing. So what was that transition like?
Wow. It was rough coming from the East Coast to the West Coast, a whole new, it's like night and day, right? I was coming from the hustle and bustle of New York City, and now I was in LA and everybody was at the beach and hanging out at Starbucks. So the momentum was very, very lax here, even though things were happening. I just wasn't a part of what was happening yet because I didn't have the lay of the land. So my first year in LA was tough. It was just trying to figure out, now that I'm here, what do I do? And a part of my work as my give back to fellow actors who are thinking about making a move from their hometown to even New York or LA is really understand the market, understand the business before you get here, so you don't have to try to use up 2 years trying to figure that part out. But I don't regret anything. It definitely was a great journey for me and a part of my story, so I'm grateful for that.
That's awesome. So what were some of your first experiences in the film industry?
Oh, let's see. My first television movie was Bessie with Queen Latifah, which was on HBO about the jazz singer Bessie Smith. So that was great. That was one of my first union jobs that I was able to be a part of, and amazing actors, amazing. Dee Rees directed it. She also directed Mudbound on, I want to say Netflix. I hope I'm not messing that up. But yeah, amazing artists to work with. So that was like my first real paid by the union job as an actor. So that was great.
What was that experience like, it being your first time? Were you nervous? Were you anxious? What were your feelings?
Well, no, I wasn't nervous because I had been in the industry for a while in terms of learning the lay of the land, right? When I first moved to LA, I was doing background work, just like every actor probably who have done it. And I, encourage actors to do it just so they can understand the world of television and film from behind the camera lens. Because when you are finally in front of the camera, those relationships are crucial. The crew, the cast, how does things work? So that was very educational for me. So I had already been on a working, moving set. So I knew the language, I knew, the professionalism that needed to be had in these environments. So that part I had already had down. And that's the biggest part, just being comfortable within your artistry, but also being comfortable in front of and behind the camera till you can continue to cultivate those relationships.
Absolutely. So being comfortable in your artistry, how did you get to that point? I can imagine that can be difficult for some people to, find that space. So how did you do that?
I'm still working on that. The arts in any vein that you're in, it's a journey, right? So I'm constantly finding new ways to be inspired, right? I'm constantly strengthening my instrument and my education just of the business. All of that helps with you being comfortable. Relationships help. Having a tribe that's also in the industry alongside with me and understanding, what they go through and how they've navigated the industry is all a part of your tool bag, right, as an artist in terms of just learning how to navigate, learning how to be comfortable in your skin in this industry, especially an industry where, you know, it's constantly in the media for different things, whether it's the conversation now about diversity and inclusion, whether it's the Me Too movement, right? There's always a conversation to be had, an important conversation that is being had in this industry when it comes to representation and the arts and what we want to see on television, whose stories deserves to be told in this medium. So it's all, it's an everyday work in progress to just maintain.
Wow. So kind of fast forwarding to you playing Darlene in Judas and the Black Messiah. How did this role come about?
I auditioned just like, you know, as an actor, we audition more than we work. That's just a part of what we do as artists, and auditioning is a part of the job, right? It's probably more of the job than actually booking a job and working a job. So I got an audition and I self-taped it right here. Actually, I didn't tape it here, but I taped it, sent it in, and booked it from my self-tape audition. And at the time, it wasn't titled Judas and the Black Messiah. It was the untitled Fred Hampton project. So they were still working out the title of it. And I knew who was attached to the movie. So I was definitely excited. I know Fred Hampton's story and the story of the Black Panthers. So I was like, what? They're doing this movie? Yes, yes. I don't care if I just walk and give somebody coffee. I want to be a part of this story. So that's how that came about.
Yeah, it's such a historic story and such a historic movie. What was it like preparing for that role?
You know, the world, what Shaka King did in creating the world, once you walked on set, you were there. You were in that time period. These things were happening. Chicago was alive and thriving. We actually filmed it in Cleveland. But yeah, and just I wasn't on set long, but the time that I was there, being able to watch and see the story unfold just in the couple of days that I was there, I said, oh, this is going to be good. And I only saw like a tiny bit. So when I actually saw the movie, I was like, wow, I wish I was there to see all of that unfold and come to life on camera.
Wow, that's amazing. Can you describe what the atmosphere was like and what it was like just working with those that were in the movie and who were helped create it as well?
Yeah, well, I only got to work with Lakeith and Little Rel. I have worked with Little Rel before on another project. And it was great. You know, Lakeith is a masterful artist. So being able to watch him work and understanding where in the story we were, right? Because in the movie, I come in right after, right? He feels as if he's done his job and now there's another task for him to do. And just watching him as an artist go through that transition and understanding where he was as an artist in terms of interviews that he has done, thus the movie come out, in terms of where he was mentally in that space, playing that character, added to what I was able to see and experience working with him. So that was great.
That's awesome. One of my favorite moments in the movie, or quotes, I guess, is Fred Hampton saying, you know, you can murder a liberator, but you can't murder a liberation. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder a revolution. And with everything going on right now with the movement and the revolution being propelled forward, from your perspective, how do you think this movie has contributed to the culture and to the movement as a whole?
Wow. You know, it's funny, that quote, a part of our wrap gift was a sweatshirt that actually is in my car. And that quote is on the back of the sweatshirt. So I wear that sweatshirt religiously just because of that message on the back of it. So if anyone inquires, right? People who know, and you know, it's a quote and it says Chairman Fred Hampton on the back. And people who don't, it's like, yeah, this is the movement. This was the movement. It has always been the movement. So just to have his story and his family be a part of the story, who was on set every day. I didn't get a chance to meet them, but knowing that their presence was there to allow this story to even happen, and the truth of the story for people who didn't know the story to be educated on a time such as that, and seeing that not much has changed. Right. We are still in this fight. We are still in this fight. We are still in this revolution for freedom, for justice, for peace. So this movie is monumental. And the fact that it has been recognized and is being recognized, I think there's 6 Academy Awards out for the movie right now, which is this weekend, Sunday. So best of luck to everyone on Sunday. But, it's not even about that, right? It's not about the awards when it comes to our stories, right? It's just about understanding and knowing this is who we are. This is the lineage, right, of fight that we are a part of. And it's necessary, because we can make every movie and every story about our plight, but does it change anything, right? If it changes one person's perspective on how they're living or how they treat people, then we as artists have done our job. But I don't think that the story would never end. I think that it is our job to keep pushing the narrative and keep putting out these stories, so people know that we are a people of might and of power, right? And of persistence. And we won't stop. We won't stop telling our stories. So, I mean, I'm so excited and grateful to be a part of it, and to support it in any way that I can. So yeah, I'm excited.
That's powerful. That's powerful, and I think, as you mentioned, it is so important to show these images and these stories of us taking our power back and knowing that we have agency. I think that's something that's left out in sometimes history books and things like that, is Black people having agency, and us, always being in this fight. And so, with that being said, thinking about the Panthers and the work that they did, compared to things like the Black Lives Matter movement now, how do you think this idea of being a revolutionary or being a part of a revolution has changed?
I mean, the revolution is always going to be a movement, right? Because 50 years from now, God forbid, God willing, we're in a better space. But if we're not, there's going to be another generation of protesters, another generation of movers and shakers who are going to continue to push the narrative, especially now, because our young people are seeing it firsthand, right? There was no social media during the Black Panthers. Thank God that we have video, we have footage, we have documentation and pictures of what was happening. But where our young people are now, where we are now in terms of seeing it, right? It being so accessible in our daily lives, that the younger generation today are going to be so much more equipped, right? With the information, with the imagery, with the experience that would take this movement, I believe, to another level, because they have the past to refer to, they have the present to refer to, right? And it's just on a grander scale. And I applaud the efforts of our ancestors, that came before us. I humbly bow down to them. And for the people who are out in the street, the Black Lives Matter movement, all the grassroots organizations that are here to continue the fight. I mean, it is necessary. And to know that where we are right now, especially with, George Floyd's, the case on, I don't even want to say his name, but the case is like, if Darnell wasn't there to tape it, right? If that medium wasn't there, right? We would not have gotten the verdict, right? And the verdict doesn't end anything, right? It's just another step forward. It's just a peg to where we need to be. So the migration of the two, I think, will equip to continue to be even more powerful than we are now, to be even more powerful than those who came before us, because they are in the thick of it, unfortunately, right? Because I don't believe that it should be so right there in front of their face, but it's necessary. You know, we can't hide the world from our youth. They need to know, because this is the world that we are leaving to them. So, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's, I think, why Judas and the Black Messiah is so powerful, to know, how these things happen before us and how we can learn from it and grow from them and stand on their shoulders. And I've noticed a lot of the work that you do is based on, as you mentioned, playing in Bessie and sharing these historical stories. Is that important for you when you are auditioning or choosing a role, that it somehow, influences the culture in a way or is impactful in that way?
Absolutely. I'm very mindful in terms of the trajectory, and I'm mindful of the trajectory of my career and what I say yes to and what I pass on, right? And I think that's important, because I'm grateful to have been a part of timely time period movies like Bessie, Hidden Figures, right? Judas and the Black Messiah, The Good Lord Bird, which is now on Showtime, where I play an enslaved woman. And, the narrative that is in our industry in terms of, we as Black people we don't want to see another, slave show or anything like that. But I was able to be a part of a show called The Good Lord Bird, where I play a character named Sabonia, who is an enslaved woman. The Good Lord Bird is based off of a book. And it is the story of John Brown, and how John Brown, a white man, was fighting to free my people, right? And that message that he pushed. So when I first got the material, I was like, okay, right? But when you watch it, it's not an abuse of body, right? It is my character actually starts a revolt, right? Insurrection. Wow. To free us, to free my people from bondage. And the power that I had to exude, that this character exude, who I found out later, her story was documented. Like, this was a real account. Oh, wow. And I was like, wow, the work that I had to do to put myself there and to, embody our ancestors, spirit and fight was the most empowering thing I have ever done for myself and for my art. But the message in that story was that the revolution, the fight, we're not going to stop, right? We are accountable to stand in that power, yeah. Right? So that has just been, that changed me as a woman, that changed me as a mother. It changed me as an artist. Wow. To be able to tell a story like that. So please, I implore you to watch The Good Lord Bird with Ethan Hawke. It's amazing.
Absolutely. What was it like preparing for that role? I can imagine it being emotional and going through a lot of different thoughts. And what was that like?
Yes, it was just that. It was daily meditation. It was daily, self-care, because I understood what I was walking into. And, no one wants to bear that trauma. We can't even imagine that trauma. So the best I could, I had to embody that mind, body, and spirit, and was honored to do so. And I feel the ancestors blessed me. They showed up. So I'm grateful for that.
I love that. I love that. You mentioned self-care. Do you have any tips for those that are preparing for a role, or maybe young Black creatives who, want to get into this industry, on how you find that balance of doing the work, but also taking care of yourself?
For sure. Meditation, prayer. I just came back from a hike, getting out in nature, grounding yourself, like taking your shoes and your socks off and putting your feet in the soil, right? Traveling. Right before this role, I was grateful to have traveled to South Africa for the first time. So that was that was part of the transformation. Right now, I didn't know that I was going to have this role 6 months later, but it prepared me in such a way because I had just came from the motherland, right? I had sat at the feet of Zulu kings and queens. It was the most life-changing experience I've ever, and I'm grateful, and I can't wait to go back to learn more, to dig my toes, literally 10 toes down in the soil. It was, it does something to you. And we as Black people, we don't get that opportunity, right? That's not something that we do. We don't, go back home. We don't, go to the source. Whether we don't think about it or it's just not encouraged, right? Because the stigma or the narrative around Africa. But that journey home was, I can't even put it into words. Like it was that was the self-care that I needed. So yeah.
Wow. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's what I would suggest. Breathing, breath work is good, relaxing, and really just taking care of your mind, body, and spirit on all levels, whatever that does for you or whatever your thing is. But I mean, it could be soaking in a tub for 2 hours, right? But we need, all of us as human beings, we need that, right? We need that process of stillness to really be able to hear and work effectively in our artistry.
Yeah, those are great tips. And I think, yeah, it is so important. I think it's something that we forget sometimes because we get so busy and caught up in all the various things that we're doing. And so, yeah, grounding yourself, that's something that's amazing and something I need to work on too. I think it's so cool that you took this amazing trip to Africa, not knowing you were going to have this role, and it kind of prepared you in that way. So I think that says a lot. Are there any other tips or pieces of advice you would give to young Black people trying to get into film or acting?
Well, we're going to take the word try out, right? I got that from my friend Gil. He would cut you down if he hears you say try. Just do it. The fear, it's going to come. It's not real. We have to get past that. The doubt, right? The judgment, all of it, especially as Black creatives, right? Because there is this narrative out there that we aren't enough, right? Or no one cares. No one cares about our stories, or, we don't have the resources. We don't have the community to support. We don't have the funding to create our own work. But surround yourself with like-minded people, right? Get a mentor, come to LA, figure it out. I mean, literally, I had to figure it out. Understanding the business, not allowing the business just because they say no, that's the end of your dream, right? I get told no on a daily. It's a part of our job to get told no. Okay, on to the next. But what's for you is for you, right? And we can't stop ourselves. And not only can we not stop ourselves, we can't allow other people to stop us, because that's an easy thing to do, right? For someone else's opinion and feelings about what it is that we're creating to affect us in a way that we stop doing it, right? So, yeah. Because I want to know. I want to hear everyone's stories, not just Black stories. I want to hear all stories, especially from people of color, right? So I am open to all of it. I encourage it. I want to see it. We all want to see it. This world needs to see it, because everyone's story is valid and should be told and should be seen on film, on television. So yeah, just do it, because you have a viewer here waiting.
Yes, I love that. So as you are preparing for these roles, and you're in the thick of it, do you ever find yourself struggling to kind of separate, you're preparing for this role, you're preparing for this character, how do you kind of balance doing that, but still, authentically being yourself and living your life?
Well, the work is being yourself,
Mm,
right? So in anything that you prepare for, you have to bring yourself to the work.
mhm,
That is the number one thing. You can't separate it, because if you're embodying this character that you're creating, um, obviously, unless you're playing a real person, right? And you're telling someone's story, but you still have to bring you to that. Your
mhm,
essence has to embody that. And that's when your work is most truthful, when you are bringing your full self to it. So in terms of separating, there's some things that has to be set aside, but 90% you have to bring all of you,
mm,
because that is what is going to affect the viewer, because they're looking at a real human being.
yeah,
Because if you don't do that, then you're just acting,
mhm,
right? Instead of, you know, uh, um, affecting the viewer. That's the goal, to tell the truth, to story tell. How many movies and shows do you watch and you're like bawling at the end of it because you're moved, because something that actor is doing, all of what that actor is doing is truthful in such a way that it suspends reality. And here you are in a box of tissues because you can relate, because they're having a human experience. Um, so that's what I try to, I said try. That is what I push myself to do with every opportunity that I get.
I really like that, bringing your full self. I like that a lot.
Oh, it's scary, right?
Yeah.
It's scary. It's exposing, right? Exposing truths. That's what we do as artists, expose the truth. And it's hurtful sometimes it's shameful, sometimes it's joyous.
Mhm.
But we have to tap into all of that emotion, all of our human cells, to really story tell in a way that is going to move people.
So with that, with bringing your full self to these characters, is there any one character that you played that you feel you most align with?
Definitely Sabonia and the Good Lord Bird, because it was just the fight in her, the fight to be willing to die for what she believed in,
Mm,
right? To live her life, to have peace, to have freedom. Um, Her faith, her spirit, it pushed me to the point where I was like, wow, this is what I'm doing in my life, right?
mhm,
Fighting to be heard, fighting to put my truth out there, to not allow someone to take advantage, to use, to manipulate, to stand in my power, to use all of me to face people or things or obstacles in life truthfully,
mhm.
and not allowing it to set me back or to get me down. Right. So, yeah, I thank her daily for that.
That's amazing. So you are an audition coach as well, correct?
Yes. I own ITAPE LA in Los Angeles, and it's a self tape company and audition coaching.
So tell me what that's like and what made you want to get into that.
Well, I started it because as an actor, I was self taping a lot of my auditions all the time. Right here, this is where I tape. And all my friends are actors out here, so they were getting self tapes. And this was before, like right now, self tapes is how you audition, especially now during the pandemic. But it still was um, popular prior to the pandemic. So all actors want to go in the room, right? We want to go in the room. We want to be in front of casting. We want to do our thing in the room. That's our comfortable space.
Mhm.
But now self-taping is the way to go. And the business started about 7 years ago because I was taping all of my friends and we were in here just taping. And one of my friends said, you know, you need to really turn this into a business because you're taping everyone and they're booking their jobs. So that's how ITAPE LA was born. And it is so rewarding because I really created it out of a place of for actors to come and not have fear in their work, to have fun and let's just do it. Working with a fellow artist, I get it. I know what that feeling is. I know what that, but you know, this nervousness is about. Let's work through that. Let's have fun and let's do our best work. So ITAP LA is popping, as they say.
That's great.
But it's my give back, and I enjoy doing it. And I learned so much as an artist with the actors that I have the opportunity to work with.
That's great. Wow. Congratulations. I love that. When you mentioned encouraging those that you work with to, step out of that fear and into that joy, what kind of tips do you give and how do you encourage them to do that?
Definitely breath work.
Mhm.
Let's breathe, right? Because, we bring so much of our baggage,
Mhm.
right? A lot of times. And some of it serves you and some of it doesn't, right? Life happens. That's understandable, but let's leave that at the door, right? Let's ground ourselves in this space and let's tell the story.
Mhm.
Let's just tell the story. That's all we're here to do. We're not here to show. We're not here to act.
Mhm.
We're here to storytell. So just tell me the story. Right? So once we get there, it's like, okay, now I can relax. Right? And I give myself the same prep talk, right? When I'm on that side as well. Just tell the story. Because that's what we're watching, right? I'm watching television and films because I want to know the story. And the actors that I'm watching that are moving me, that I want to follow their career, that I want to support everything that they're doing, are those who are telling the story in such a way that I am affected on all different levels, right? And we see great work. We see that and we saw that in the late great Chadwick Boseman, right? We see that in Viola. We see that in so many of our talented Black actors, as well as non-Black actors, those who effectively storytell. So that's the framework that I like to approach.
Absolutely. So with this storytelling, is there any role that you are wanting to step into that you haven't gotten a chance to yet, or maybe certain type of movie that you haven't experienced that you would want to?
Yes. Listen, I think we all want to be superheroes, right? With superpowers. So I would love that.
Cool.
And I was able to play a cop on Black Lightning for a few seasons, but I really want to get gritty with like a cop or military role. Primarily, my mother is a retired police officer and retired Army drill sergeant. So because I've lived that life and I've seen it, just to step into that, to tell a story of a Black female police officer and soldier who fought for this country, deployment, all of that, the sacrifice that I watched my mom go through, for my brother and I to provide for us, in that medium of such two totally dangerous jobs, for a woman. Like I would love to be able to tell that story.
That's
And
super.
now that I'm saying it, it's going to happen.
Yes, absolutely. We're calling it into existence. We're claiming it. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So kind of getting outside of your work, is there anything that most people don't know about you that you would think would surprise people?
I was a track star.
Okay.
I mean, I know that. I can run really fast, 4x100 relay, anchor leg. Yeah, I got some medals and some trophies.
Okay. Okay. Awesome.
So yeah, did that. What else wouldn't they know? I don't know. I mean, I'm super private, so
Mhm.
it's not like I put everything out there. But yeah, I definitely was an athlete. A lot of people don't know that. Don't
Very,
know that about me. And I
very
was a huge sports fan. That was the whole why I went to school for sports journalism. So I used to watch ESPN at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, like nonstop in my house. Now I'm asking my husband, like, who's that person? Who they played for? And he's like, what happened? So I'm kind of behind on the sports world, but that was my thing prior to the arts taking over.
awesome. Very cool. So if you weren't, in the arts, you think that's where you would be?
Most definitely. Sideline reporting, desktop, ESPN. That's where I would be.
That would be your thing.
That would be my thing. I
Cool.
would literally be the one getting all the interviews right after the game, like pulling LeBron to the side and like getting the interview. That would
Uh-huh.
be
Awesome.
it still can, you never know.
Yeah,
But
right. You never know. You never know.
yes.
So what's the future look like? Are you working on any projects now? What are you excited for?
Yes, I actually just wrapped season 2 of HIGHTOWN on STARZ. So that's an amazing show. Check that out. Season 2, I believe, airs this fall. So I play a character named Janelle on the show. So I just wrapped that, just got back in town from that. So that was amazing. That's exciting. And now, as an actor, when we book a job, we work a job and it's great. And then that job wraps and then we need another job. So right now I'm just back in the thick of it, back in LA, auditioning, doing what actors do best, auditioning. And yeah, but the momentum, the future is bright. I'm so excited about this year and all that is going to happen. I feel it. And yeah, look out for HIGHTOWN season 2.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. So just reflecting back on all of your work and thinking about the future, what legacy do you want to leave?
Oh man, you're gonna make me cry. Well, I'm a mother. I
Mhm.
have a 10-year-old daughter, and it is very important to me to leave a legacy to her that she understands and knows full heartedly her power, her
Mhm.
presence, her voice. I am constantly instilling in her for her to know who she is. She is very confident. I mean, she is like me times 1,000. I'm like, yes, okay, I'm doing my job, right? But I'm her role model. She's
Mhm.
acting, she's producing, she's writing a book. But for her to just stand in her power, stand in her truth, because she knows what that looks like, because she see mommy do it every day, and understand that some things in life is a sacrifice, right? Me pursuing my dream, sometimes I have to sacrifice some things, right? I sacrificed Judas and the Black Messiah, prime example, fell on the same weekend as her yearly class camping trip that we go on a family every year.
Mhm.
And I literally had mommy guilt
Yeah.
about missing a camping trip that happens every year, like falling guilt, like, no, trying to work it out. How can I do both? How
Yeah.
can I go here and come back and all of that? So the legacy of just going after everything it is that you want,
Mhm.
follow your dreams, advocate for yourself, use your voice. I am grateful that she's growing up in this time, despite where we are in the world, so she can see this is the world that is going to be left to you. How
Mhm.
do you navigate this? How do you advocate? How do you stand in your power? How do you use your voice? How do you stand up for what's right, right? And denounce what's wrong?
Mhm.
Um, so that's the legacy that I hope, along with my work, that I'm able to continue to work on projects that pushes our story, that pushes the narrative of strong Black women, strong Black men, um, for our ancestors and for the generation, like my daughter's generation. So that's what I'm hoping and praying my legacy would be and leaving to her.
That's powerful, very powerful. You mentioned sacrifices, and having to give up some of those things for your work. How do you make those choices and kind of deal with those things? And what advice would you give to creatives who are in similar positions?
Sometimes I said no,
Mm-hmm.
just because, right, it was going to take me here or take time away from this. And my family is everything, my life, right? Because I think a lot of times, creatives, we get so into our creative mode, into our job and our work, that we don't live.
Yeah.
Right. And in order to be a creative, you have to live fully so you can bring that life to your work. So I'm very aware of that. And I don't want to lose sight or not say lose out, but I don't want to miss happiness. I don't want to miss life. I don't want to miss, okay, I can sacrifice a camp trip after I cry all weekend. But, there are things that I'm not going to miss. So really taking a broad look at, and guess what? This industry isn't going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going anywhere. It is going to be here. It's going to continue to be here. We're not missing out on anything, really. But we will miss out on life if we put this first.
Mm-hmm.
So just live, enjoy, bring your life to the work, and you'll be able to really do both without feeling any type of guilt about it.
That's great advice. That's great advice. I think that's a really significant thing to mention. Is there anything else that you want to say to our audience members or this platform about your work, or any last pieces of advice?
Just keep going. I mean, the world is really our oyster right now when it comes to creating, right? Where we don't need a studio or an executive or something to green light a passion project. Just do it.
Yeah.
Even if only 100 people see it, do it. That will give you the momentum to continue to create, right? To continue to crowdfund and do all the things necessary to get your work out there. So I am in the process of dipping my toe in the director field. I also do, I'm a dialogue coach for Netflix. So I do a lot of their scripted shows where I'm able to work behind the camera as well. And it's really it's expanding me as a creative, right? So you can just be multifaceted in this industry. So do all the things, learn all the things, and just do it. I mean, we don't have the time to sit around and not, or to look back and say, I should have, would have, could have, right? That's when that fear sets in and that doubt sets in. So always act with self-regard and move forward in your dream.